So let me just ask you very quickly. Um, Tell us why, what is the scale of this genocide that is happening, and where do you see the role of Britain in this?
It's obviously quite big. This isn't a recent event. It's been going on for some time. The conflict in the region has been going on since 1990s, to be honest with you. It's obviously quite intensified. Recently, it seems like their final solution is to really get rid of Muslims from that region. And they are actually breaking every international law out there to do so. So it's an ongoing genocide. It's targeted against Muslims only. You see, they're not the only Muslims in Burma. There are other Muslims who live in the country, but they are ethnically cleansing that region from the people who live there. So it's a policy, the government policy they're implementing. And unless the world really gets up and does something about it, they will not stop until they finish what they're trying to achieve in the region. So far, cost thousands.
Did you see the BBC and CNN coverage of the Suu Kyi election?
I did, which is quite interesting how they actually portray her. Still, I mean,
but did you notice that they didn't even raise it for a single time that the Muslims were not allowed to vote? They were not treated as a citizen, even though they lived there for 600 years.
It's quite a long time, in fact, I can say. And not only that, I could actually say one of the interviewers, remember the previous interview was conducted by a Muslim from BBC, and she was really offended by it because the interviewer from BBC was Muslim. Do you see how they're actually trying to create such a divisive society in there by showing hatred they have for Muslims in that region, including Aung San Suu Kyi? It doesn't matter who it is. They actually have such a hatred for them.
Please introduce our viewers yourself.
My name is Hakan Kamus. I'm the chairman of Türkiye Foundation.
Nice meeting you. Thank you, Hakam. Yeah. So, Bariba, you had a very short speech in the beginning. Tell us something, your feelings about what's happening, and where is really the solution? How can the Rohingya Muslims, what can everybody do, whether here or in Bangladesh? What is the role of Britain? I mean, there is a lot of things happening at the moment, and where is the fate of Rohingya going to end?
Well, fate of Rohingya Muslim is very difficult to say because the global politics is working in here, and many Western countries, including our government, are giving military aid to Burmese military junta. Unless these are stopped and the governments put pressure on the Burmese government, it's very difficult to say what happens. Suu Kyi or Suu Kyi is just one figure, and of course there should be pressure. And I think at the end of the day, it's the Burmese military junta which is making this decision. Suu Kyi herself should have raised her voice, but I think as ordinary people in the streets or in Britain, we should raise our voice as loudly as possible and talk to our MPs and put pressure on our government so that they put pressure on the Burmese government. They stop trading with arms. That's my. So
there is the arms conference happening, actually starting in few days or few weeks in the Excel Center.
People should go into this conference and make a protest, but the problem is, it's the government that sends arms to another government. So these are the these
exhibitions happening in Excel right now.
Are just they are just promoters. But at the end of the day, these are the governments. Western governments are still supplying arms to the Burmese military junta. That's the main problem. And if Burmese junta knows that Western governments are going to stop, then probably things will change.
So we are speaking with Dr. Bari, who is a very prominent figure in the Bangladeshi Muslim community in the UK. So Bari, coming back to the question of, these arms trading are happening and the exhibitions are happening, and the government is selling arms. I mean, they're selling arms to Burma, they're selling arms to Saudi, and we know there's the Rohingyas on one side, and then you have the Yemenis on the other side. It's really the Muslim community needs to come together. Where are the Muslim community institutions? They need to raise a stronger voice.
Well, Muslim community and institutions in the West, especially in Britain, we are not that powerful. That's one area. The problem is the whole Muslim world is in paralysis. If the Muslim governments, majority Muslim governments, in the name of OIC or individually, like Turkey has been doing, would have spoken up, would have talked to the UN, would have spoken with the global powers, things would have changed. Unfortunately, global Muslim leadership is in paralysis. So what we have to do as ordinary citizens is to raise our voice and talk with our own MPs and put pressure on our government so that at least our government takes some initiative. Our government stops supplying arms, and our government takes a moral leadership and talks to other governments, because it's a Security Council member. Then there is some possibility. Unfortunately, global politics is going on, and that's another unfortunate thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bari, for your time. Thank you. Could you please introduce yourself? Sorry.
My name is Mark Farmaner. I'm director at Burma Campaign UK.
Right. Mark, can you please tell us, when Suki election happened, we saw BBC, CNN, and many media covered the election, but no one raised the fact that Muslims in Burma couldn't vote. Why wasn't it raised? Why was it overlooked from that time?
Well, the Rohingya Muslims were deprived the right to vote. A lot of other Muslims in the country who are not Rohingya were able to vote, I think. But what was worrying is that Aung San Suu Kyi had decided not to field any Muslim candidates, and once she was in government, she didn't appoint any Muslim ministers. Now, there was a theory that she wasn't talking about anti-Muslim sentiment because it's so endemic in the country. She was worried about losing votes. But after the election, and she'd won a landslide, there was no reason for her not to appoint any Muslim members of her government, but she chose not to do that either.
What is happening from a geopolitical point of view? Because there is a lot of views that it is about the energy, the resources, but to get the energy or resources, you don't need to do ethnic cleansing, do you? Energy resources is about business, it's not about race.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to create a special economic zone where the Rohingya are and there's gas reserves, but they can just put, and they've done it to other ethnic groups in the Burma, they just put a pipeline right through their village, they don't care. This is about ethnicity, and this is about religion. There is a perception, among many people in Burma that Muslims are foreign, that they arrived in Burma in colonial times and that was a time of humiliation, and that they don't.
And when you say colonial time, which time do you mean? The 18th, 19th century?
We're talking of roughly 1824 to the post-Second World War period when Burma gained its independence.
But the history suggests that they have been there since the 14th, 15th century.
Absolutely, but what you had for a long time, since 1962, is a military dictatorship that tried to justify its existence by being defenders of the race and religion, and casting other ethnic people, not just the Rohingya, but Karen, Shan, Kachin, Karenni, other ethnic minorities as foreign and the enemy.
Very quickly, are you going to go and demonstrate protest against the selling of arms to Burmese government by the UK?
We've been campaigning against. Well, it's not the selling of arms that we know of. They might be supplying military equipment. They are providing military training. We've been campaigning against that since 2013. We're working with MPs now. We've got like nearly 200 MPs backing the campaign. Anyone that should be contacting their MP saying back this campaign.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi.
Doing well?
Thank you.
So Mong Tung King, please introduce yourself.
My name is Tun Kin Ghaffar, President of Burmese Rohingya Organization UK. I was born and brought up in Arkan State, western part of Burma. I'm living in UK about 14 years now.
Tung King, tell us about, these things are happening for quite very long time. You haven't had an armed struggle against the Burmese junta. Is there a plan to declare an independence or anything of that nature from the Rohingyas?
I don't think we are demanding any state or anything. Because we are requesting, we are urging international community, appealing, and also we are asking from Burmese government to restore the Rohingya rights, which is ethnic rights and citizenship rights. So Burmese military having a plan systematically to wipe out the whole Rohingya population. So what we are facing today is the last stage of genocide. So we need international urgent intervention to protect the lives of the Rohingya. Where we are receiving mass killings is going on. According to the information we received from the ground, at least 4,000 Rohingya been killed by Burmese army since August 25th, and 150,000 Rohingya become IDPs. 300,000 Rohingya fled to Bangladesh. So we are witnessing the most horrific situation in our history. We are emergency crisis. We really need international community urgent immediate action to
So if this continues the way it is, the whole Rohingyas, what is the total population of Rohingyans inside Burma at the moment?
we have 1.5 million.
So out of which 300,000 fled and came to Bangladesh, and perhaps 100,000 are either killed or injured. So it's probably not going to be very long before everybody is cleansed.
This is the plan of Burmese government. So that's
So when are you going to say enough is enough? We want our own state. When are you going to say that?
because I don't want to say these things because in the media I don't want to say anything.
Okay, well, but you understand that you'll have to stand up on your feet and face the Goliath, and you don't have a choice but to do that. At some point you'll have to do that, otherwise you'll be dead.
The thing is, we need international pressure to send UN peacekeeping force to save the lives of the Rohingya. This is the most important thing for now.
So do you have your envoys in Bangladesh and the neighboring countries working?
There is many Rohingya communities in Bangladesh. Also, I hope they are raising with the Burmese Bangladesh government. It is time for Bangladesh government to. It is time for Bangladesh government to take an opportunity to find for a permanent solution for the Rohingya issue. Because Bangladesh government been facing this crisis for many years. Because whenever it's not only 2017. In 1978, about 275,000 Rohingya fled to Bangladesh. In 1991 and 92, 200,000 Rohingya fled to Bangladesh. In 2016, 100,000 over Rohingya people fled to Bangladesh. Currently, in 2017, at least 300,000 Rohingya been fled. So we appreciate they giving us shelter and protection, but we belongs to Burma. We want to get our rights in Burma. So Bangladesh government have to take effective action, cooperation with international community to find out a permanent.
Another question is the complaint of the Burmese government or the people who are doing this. They're saying you are Bengalis and you're not Burmese. How long is the history of Rohingyas in Arakan?
According to the history, Rohingyas are living early 7th century AD in Arakan state.
Early 7th century. That's when India is not yet formed.
Yes, exactly.
Even before whole of India was formed.
Yes.
And they are claiming that this is not your land.
They are claiming that this is not our land. That's what they've been trying for many years. So this is last stage. That's what I'm saying.
And this is all this is fully racial, or there is economic as well.
It's a political, racial, and ethnic and religious persecution we are facing.
Tunkin, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hi. Could you please introduce yourselves? You're from LV24 TV.
Oh, I'm Maha Azam, and I'm the head of the Egyptian Revolutionary Council. We are an organization opposed to the military regime in Egypt, and we believe in a civil democratic state. We've come here in support of what is happening, the massacres that are happening, the genocide that is happening in Burma. We want to make our voice heard in support of all those gathered here today to say that military institutions are a danger to society. They have resulted in the mass murder and mass killing of innocent Muslims in Burma, and that ultimately we call on the British government and all democratic governments in the world to expose what is happening, to cut diplomatic ties with Burma, to ensure that Aung San Suu Kyi is put before the International Criminal Court, as well as the head of the military in Burma. Burma. We know full well that
Excuse me. How is that going to happen when there are joint military exercises happening with the American military and Burmese military?
society, the broader civil society in Western democracies, the community here, the Muslim community, with all those that stand with them in the United Kingdom and in the United States, must pressure the members of parliament, the governments, to cut ties with the Burmese government and to ensure that not in our name can these massacres take place.
But it is not only about the government, it's also about the mainstream media is not talking much about it, are they?
They will start talking about it if the community takes to the streets, if they demonstrate, if they lobby their MPs, if they tell the British government and other Western governments that these massacres cannot happen in our name, and that ultimately these democracies that claim to uphold human rights are ultimately complicit in the murder of innocents in Myanmar and responsible for the support of the regime in Myanmar.
BBC and CNN covered the 2015 Suki election, and they didn't raise it for a second that Muslims were not allowed to vote. Rohingyas were not allowed to vote in Burma.
That is absolutely right, and we have lost thousands and thousands of lives. Women have been raped, children have been massacred. It's about time the international media spoke out. They cannot ignore this genocide, because if we ignore it, we will then be complicit in the future and continuing murder of innocent men, women and children.
Thank you very much. So you have extensive experience of visiting Burma and seeing what's happening, the atrocities, and you have spoken to the victims and the eyewitnesses. Why is the world media quiet about it? Why did not BBC raise the question of Muslim Rohingyas were not allowed to vote at the time of Suki election? Why is the American and the UK government working in tandem with Burmese government?
I think that, look, I think the media were reporting it. I think that is about prominence, about where it levels, where it comes in the news agenda. Does it come at the top? Does it come at the bottom? Does it come in? So right now, because people are crossing the border, it's at the top of the news agenda. What happens when it's not? You know, what happens in a month's time or a year's time or 2 years' time? What's going to happen? So I think. I think that's an issue. I think that people have been reporting it. I think attention was brought to it. But what's going to happen in a year's time? I think that the world media is paying attention. We just need to keep the pressure up.
So there are 1.1 million Rohingyas, and there's 300,000 or approximately 500,000 already fled to Bangladesh, or 300,000 fled to Bangladesh, and there were previous incidences when hundreds of thousands fled to Bangladesh. So how long are they going to survive? They're going to be completely cleansed out of Burma.
Maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's the plan. I think that the survival, there's a massive question mark over the future of the Rohingya in Burma.
Well, what do you think people should be doing, and what are the responsibilities of everyone?
I think that the international community needs to put pressure on the Burmese government and those that support the Burmese government. I think that's what needs to happen. I think that's the only way things are going to change.
When you say international community, do you not mean the international governments too?
I mean the British, I mean the Americans, I mean Bangladeshis, I mean every single country needs to put pressure and say we will not allow the ethnic cleansing to continue and to take place. I think they have to, this has to go to the top level. This has to go to United Nations. This has to go to the world governments, international community, to put pressure on the Burmese to say stop what you're doing and stop it right now.
Sorry, I have to quickly ask you to introduce yourself to our audience.
My name is Asad Beg. I'm a journalist from the UK.
Thank you very much.